Hi, this is Mr. Frazier, and I'm going over the video notes for the lesson of 10.1 for those of you who work in class. Alright, so what you should have in front of you would be your textbook because it has a whole bunch of information. We're going to look at problem 1 first, and it's being able to organize data, put things in a table. You've done this work before. The only difference is you never knew what the tables were called, but most of you have done this work since like 3rd and 4th grade. So they give you a whole list of 9th and 10th graders that are working on favorite meals that they like. So what you're supposed to do is when you look at that data table right away, you can see that it's unorganized and scattered out. So what you're supposed to do on problem number 4 would be to put it into some sort of table. And they start filling out the table for you. And usually most of you know what would go over here would be 9th and 10th because it's talking about 2 grade levels. And then it talks about different types of foods. So the foods that they talk about are burgers, chicken nuggets, pizza, and a salad bar. All right, now, the reason they put burgers first is because when you list stuff and you're trying to be organized, you want to make sure that over here we did 9 before 10, we put it in numerical order. So when you're listing things that are written out in words, you want to make sure that you put them in alphabetical order as well. It's a way of keeping your materials organized, and everybody ends up having the same type of chart listed simply because we're all doing the same thing. Hopefully everybody here knows their alphabet, and it's pizza before salads. Okay. Now notice I just abbreviated. As long as you know what's going there, if you can't fit it all into the square, it's okay. And then you're going to count. So you go through the list, and when we count, we use things called tally marks. Okay? And hopefully most of you understand that tally marks work up to the number 4, and then when you do 5, you cut across. So as I go through, you can go ahead and pause the video, and you should go ahead and do all the tally marks, and then you'll start the video again, and you'll catch up to where I'm at. Okay, so go ahead and pause it now. All right, now that you're back, I'm going to go ahead and put in the tally marks. And you should have seen or gotten the same marks. Okay. All right. Now, this is no different, like I said, since you've been doing this since 4th grade. It's not like this is anything different. The fact that it's different is that it has a name now. This is called a two-way frequency table. Because we're doing the frequency 2 ways. We're going 9th and 10th, going left to right, and then category-wise up and down. So being that we're doing it in 2 different directions, we call it a 2-way frequency table. Okay? So that's what we're learning, what it's called, 2-way frequency. And then we can take that information and move it to another type of chart. That type of chart is called joint frequency. That's because you're going to be joining those numbers to get a total. Okay? And then whenever we're doing a total, it's called joint frequency. So that table starts out looking the same. And you'll see they've already filled out the table for you with the titles. They're not going to mess around or waste a whole lot of time. They've already got 9th and 10th grade. Okay, 9th, 10th, and then they have total. Okay, and then of course they go across the top and they got burgers, chicken nuggets, pizza, salad, and total. Now why do they do this? The reason we use a joint frequency chart is because as we get further and further into the amount of data that they give you, like the number of people surveyed or how high we go, it's more and more common that you're going to make a mistake. So they use the joint frequency table so that you're double checking the amount of work you've done, and when you get to the end, your totals should match. So for example, we know this was 4, this is 3, and the total would be 7. This is 1, this is 7, this totals 8. This is 3 and 3, this is 6, and this is 5 and 4, which is 9. Okay? And when I add all the way across, I'm going to get the number 30. Now, if I add all the way across for all of these, you'll see that this one is, correct, 13, and this one is, correct, 17, and when you add down, you get 30. So this way is 30, this way is 30, and I have not missed any information. And that's called a joint frequency. Now, do they look similar? Of course they do. The difference being the joint one has totals, and the two-way frequency is just tally marks. All right, now why is it important to have those? And this was the discussion that we didn't get to in any of our classes. It's because you can then write fractions for these frequencies. And one of those fractions is called marginal. Let me double check. I want to make sure I say it right. One of them is a relative frequency, and one of them is relative marginal frequency. Okay, so the difference between the two is you're writing fractions. One is a fraction over the total number. So for example, the total number is 30. So this would be 4 over 30, 3 over 30, 1 over 30, 7 over 30, 3 over 30, 3 over 30, 5 over 30, and 4 over 30. These would all be fractions. Okay, that would be one of them. And the other one would be pieces over the pieces. So in other words, this would be 4 over 7, 3 over 7, 1 over 8, 7 over 8. So it's done by different categories. So the writing of the fraction isn't the hard part. It's making sure that you use your calculator correctly and changing it to a decimal. Okay, but those are the minor parts of it. Making sure you do one or the other is the important part. So let's look at the relative frequency marginal distribution. Okay, so we take that same chart and we add to that chart by doing the pieces over the whole. So we know the total is 30. So we're going to use the denominator of 30 for all of these. So that means this would be 4 over 30, 3 over 30, 1 over 30, 7 over 30, 3 over 30, 3 over 30, 5 over 30, and 4 over 30. Okay. Now you could also do the totals. This would be 13 over 30, 17 over 30, 7 over 30, 8 over 30, 6 over 30, 9 over 30. And obviously this one would be the number 1 because it would be 30 over 30. Okay? But this is what we call marginal distribution. And again, it's not super hard. It's the fact you've taken the total and you're writing it as a fraction. Okay? The second one is called relative. This is marginal. The next one's called conditional. Now the reason it's called conditional is because the denominator is going to be the total of your category. So in this particular problem, I'll do it again, and we'll do the conditional part. This would be 4 over 7, 3 over 7, and 7 over 7, which would be 1. This would be 1 over 8 and 7 over 8. This would be 3 over 6 and 3 over 6. This would be 5 over 9 and 4 over 9. Okay? So as you can see, the conditional are the pieces. Okay? And then of course this last one would always be the number 1. Why? Because it would always be itself over the total. Okay? So being able to understand the difference between relative and conditional. Okay. And again, it's the pieces of the categories. So in this case, these categories would be 7 over 7, which is 1, 8 over 8, which is 1, 6 over 6, which is 1, and 9 over 9, which is 1. All right. Real brief. Being able to change those to fractions, you just do the division problem and you'd write the decimal. If you need the percent, move it over 2 places and it would give you the percent. The rest of it's all basic calculator work. But understand the difference between marginal and conditional. The two-way frequency and a joint frequency. Last but not least, we talked about in class was being able to do a bar graph. And with that bar graph, that would be the problem, or the second part of the first problem, which is, or excuse me, let me rephrase that. If you looked at problem 2, and you went to question 2 of problem 2, you would see the charts that is there, and you'd label it 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to 9. And then down here you would do burgers, chicken nuggets, pizza, and salad. The 2 bars you would have would be 9th grade and 10th graders. That's why it's a double bar graph. Now you can do this one of 2 ways. You could do it by grade, so you would have, say, look at this, we'd have 9th grade and 10th grade, okay, and you'd have 2 for each. One of them has to be marked differently, so you got to have a key. So this would be 9th graders, and your 10th graders would be the ones that are with the stripes. Now you can make up your own key, you can use dots, flowers, whatever you want to use, as long as you're telling people what those specific grades are. The second one obviously was going to be chicken nuggets at 1, and then the 10th graders go to 7th, okay? And we go ahead and mark that off. And you would go through the whole chart doing the double bar graph, once for 9th, for 10th. If you wanted to, you could use a quadruple bar graph, and what you would do is you'd make 9th grade and 10th grade, and then you'd have to have 4 different notations, 1 for burgers, 1 for chicken nuggets, 1 for pizza, and 1 for salad. And then you'd use a quadruple bar graph. What wouldn't change? The number of students. It's just how you're showing that information, how you're organizing it. You can organize it either way. Neither way is incorrect. But you do have to follow the directions they tell you. So if they tell you how they want it, that's how you have to do it. All right? Your homework for tonight is 10-1. And 10-1 only deals with two-way frequency, joint frequency, and bar graphs. It doesn't deal with the fractions. We'll talk about those in class again. It's really brief and not too hard to do. You just have to know how to make them into fractions. All right? Thank you very much, and we will see you.